ಇಬ್ಬಂದಿ ಇಬ್ಬಂದಿಯಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ದರ್ಶನ ಕಾಣೋ.
Hello, Shekhar Purna here. The date is 12/07/2026. I had previously used the title Priyank Kharge Mohan Bhagwat, RSS and the Act of Concealment, Muchchiduvike, on this very Ibbandi channel. After posting it, the word concealment from the title suddenly loomed large before me and settled deeply into my mind. Although I am confident that everyone understands the word concealment based on the context of that post, I felt that the circumstance of concealment needs to be looked at from a much broader perspective. Reflecting on this subsequent line of thought, I am specially dedicating this post to my friends S. Bageshri, S.R. Ramakrishna and S. Prasad while fondly remembering them. The intent to write about the kind of influence they have had on me by obtaining their permission whenever time permits remains deeply embedded within me. It is a reality that the Deccan Herald Prajavani Journalists Union, despite being at the forefront and gaining immense respect among its members through all its bustling activities, gradually lost its strength. During that period of weakened strength, an unavoidable situation arose when I had to take over the leadership of the DPJU. Since I am ideologically a leftist, I did not back down, driven by the morality that I must accept the responsibility thrust upon me. I tried contacting members who were considered quite close to me, trying to understand what our problems were and what it was that we actually needed. Even though they were close friends, they hesitated to respond. It seemed as though they had arrived at a decision rooted in fear and anxiety that if the management started harassing them, the labor union would lack the strength to fight back. After all, they are journalists, aren't they? No one listened completely to any of my words spoken from a labor union background, nor did anyone speak firmly about what demands should be placed before the management, how they should be discussed, and what our course of action should be. My friends in the union, just like me, had also tried their best to listen to their half-hearted words. Sitting at the Indian coffee bar, sipping coffee, we, the office bearers of the union and close friends, turned the journalists' internal cowardice, brassiness, external harsh moral morality, and helplessness into humorous anecdotes. We laughed over them, pooled together all the half-baked responses we had received, prepared an exaggerated list of demands, and submitted it to the management. Compared to me, MC Narsimhan, who was a High Court advocate and a leader of the Communist Party, was far better. He was also the president of the Printing Press Employees Union, and there was no exaggeration whatsoever in the list of demands he used to submit. Looking at that, we would sometimes make fun of it and laugh. We would even enter into somewhat loud arguments with Narsimhan. Today, at the age of 71, I feel both repentance and regret. If I confess this publicly, perhaps I might attain liberation after my death. As expected, due to the slow pace of the management regarding the discussions on the list of demands, a widespread feeling spread among the journalists that the expected progress was not happening. As for me, having stopped my education in the 6th standard and spent time roaming around as a vagrant, a certain amount of roughness had become a part of my nature. Because of this, thinking let's see what happens, I used to sit at my friend Manu Chakravarti's house using his telephone and talk for hours with Hari Kumar regarding the list of demands. When my close friend Pachi confronted me with the question, how can you confine the union's negotiations within the limits of your telephone conversation, I was shaken to the core. Realizing the truth in it, I immediately resigned from the post of union president. Back then, the facility to record telephone conversations did not exist. I believe no one would doubt that if it did exist, I possessed the trait to create an audio file and play it for everyone to hear. If two individuals' conversation does not open up before all the members of the union with complete details, then what else is it implicitly if not concealment? I wish to share another instance here from amidst our culture. It relates to wedding ceremonies. The invitation of course arrives, but what should one present as a gift to the newlyweds or their parents on that special occasion? If one has money, they buy expensive gifts from a shop, pack them into large boxes and proudly present them to the couple. But to go and stand before the newlyweds holding just 5 or 10 rupees while suffocating with embarrassment is a matter of great humiliation. The solution found to overcome this is the envelope or cover. Stuffed with whatever currency notes one can afford according to their capacity, they present it to the couple and quickly flee from there. This is the concealment of a poor person. Be it our Congress or BJP leaders, when they come before the microphones of newspapers and private channels, what they say is one thing and what they keep hidden, that is conceal, is another. It is a well-known fact to everyone that this act of concealment is a highly uncooperative, antisocial and anti-democratic trait. If someone is concealing, one approach is to accept it from the bottom of one's own heart and feel relieved, and another approach is to cast one's vote by showing our disgust and revulsion towards such wretched concealment, hoping that the choice between these parts rests between you and me.
And I don't mean a malicious, mustache twirling kind of lie.
Right, like covering up a bank robbery or something.
Exactly. Nothing like that. I mean more of a strategic omission, a moment where you held back the full, unvarnished truth because, well, the reality of the situation just felt a little too messy.
Or maybe a little too vulnerable to just put out there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
We all have those moments where we curate reality. It's a deeply ingrained human reflex to sort of shield the parts of ourselves that feel inadequate.
Totally.
Or to just smooth over the rough edges of a situation so it fits more neatly into the narrative we, want to present to the world.
And that reflex, that instinct to hide that, is the core of our deep dive today.
It's such a fascinating topic.
It really is. We're looking at a striking, deeply reflective essay titled The Anatomy of Concealment and Public Morality.
Yeah.
And this was originally posted on July 12, 2026 for the YouTube channel Ibandi. It's written by an author named Shekhar Purna. So our mission today is to unpack this vast concept of concealment, or the term he uses in Canada, which is
Muchchiduiwe, yeah.
We're going to explore this through Shekhar's own confession, looking at how this instinct operates on 4 completely different levels.
Which is quite a journey.
It is. We're talking workplace survival, personal ego, cultural dignity, and finally, national politics.
And, the tone of this text is something we have to acknowledge immediately.
Oh, for sure.
Because it is confessional in the truest sense of the word. Shekhar Purna explicitly dedicates this reflection to his friends.
Yeah, he mentions S. Bagshri, S.R. Ramakrishna, and S. Prasad.
Exactly. He mentions them so fondly, which really frames the entire piece not as some sterile academic essay, but as this profound, almost urgent desire to chronicle his past before it's too late.
You definitely get that vibe.
You really do. You get the distinct feeling of a man looking in the rearview mirror of his life, trying to make sense of the times he chose to hide the truth.
And the ripple effects those choices had on his soul.
Beautifully put, yes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really grasp this broad concept of concealment, we have to start by looking at how it manifests when people are under intense institutional pressure.
Right, the workplace dynamic.
Yeah. We begin with the younger Shekhar, taking over the leadership of a labor union. Specifically, the decade-old Prajavani Journalists Union, or the DPJU.
Right.
At this point in time, the union's strength was severely fading. But Shekhar is a leftist. He feels there's a heavy moral obligation to step up and accept the responsibility thrust upon him.
Even though he is essentially inheriting a sinking ship.
Exactly. A sinking ship.
And it's a ship full of very anxious sailors. I mean, he tries to rally his colleagues, the very journalists who are supposedly close to him, right?
Right.
He wants to know what their problems are, what they actually need from management in terms of demands. But the membership is just paralyzed by fear.
They're terrified.
Absolutely terrified that if management starts harassing them, this weakened labor union simply won't have the teeth to protect them.
So they just give up.
Well, not exactly give up. But instead of speaking firmly about their demands, the journalists give these incredibly vague, non-committal responses.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they refuse to put their actual needs on the record because doing so makes them targets.
Which leads to this vivid, almost cinematic scene.
Oh, the coffee shop.
Yes. Shekhar and the union office bearers are sitting at the Indian coffee bar.
Yeah.
They're sipping coffee, looking at these weak, watered-down responses from their peers, and they decide to just turn it into a joke.
Which is wild.
It is. They take the journalists' internal cowardice, their external harsh morality, their complete helplessness, and they just laugh at it.
Yeah.
And then they make a crucial decision. They pool together all those half-baked responses and prepare a highly exaggerated list of demands to submit to management.
Right.
And, I was reading this and I immediately thought of a pufferfish.
A pufferfish. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah. Have you ever watched a pufferfish when it senses a predator nearby?
It swallows a massive amount of water to inflate its body,
Right.
Making itself look significantly larger than it actually is.
Exactly. It has no actual defenses against a shark.
Yeah.
No claws, no speed.
Right.
Its only defense is the illusion of size. It blows itself up to look intimidating to predators.
Yeah.
completely concealing its actual vulnerability behind this balloon of water.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. That is exactly what Shekhar and his friends were doing with that exaggerated list of demands. They didn't have the membership's backing, so they just puffed up the paperwork.
Yeah, because what we are looking at here is a double layer of institutional concealment.
Right.
First, you have the journalists. They are concealing their very real terror of management behind these vague words. They cannot admit to their leadership that they are too scared to fight.
Wow, yeah.
And then second, you have the union leaders. They're concealing the union's complete lack of leverage behind this wildly exaggerated list of demands.
Projecting power.
Exactly. They are projecting power to hide their institutional weakness. The laughter in the coffee shop isn't just arrogance, it's a coping mechanism.
They're laughing so they don't cry, basically.
Pretty much. They are laughing to mask their own underlying anxiety about the precarious situation they are in.
I struggle with this next part, though.
Yeah.
Because this exaggerated list of demands didn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it didn't.
And Shekhar compares his behavior to a rival leader, a man named MC Narasimhan.
Right, the high court advocate.
Yeah. Narasimhan was a high court advocate, a Communist Party leader, and the president of the Printing Press Employees Union. His approach was the complete opposite of Shekhar's.
Completely different.
Narasimhan never exaggerated his list of demands. He presented exactly what was needed, grounded entirely in reality.
Yeah.
And how did Shekhar and his friends react? They mocked him.
Yeah, they really went after him.
They would lightly argue with him about his lack of exaggeration. And, I mean, I get inflating your own demands out of fear, but why actively attack the guy who is actually doing the right thing?
It's a great question.
That feels less like a survival tactic and more like pure malice.
Well, what's fascinating here is how this specific memory exposes the psychology of ego as a defense mechanism.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. When you are deeply insecure about your own position, when you know your power is an illusion, like your pufferfish, anyone who operates with genuine, grounded authenticity becomes a massive threat.
Because they show you what you're lacking.
Exactly. Narasimhan wasn't just a rival, he was a walking mirror. His pragmatic, honest approach highlighted the emptiness of Shekhar's exaggerated demands. So the ego protects itself by mocking what it lacks. When Shekhar was young, mocking Narasimhan felt like playing the political game to win. But, you know, the passage of time strips all of that ego away.
Which is why, at 71 years old, Shekhar looks back at that mockery and expresses this crushing, deep repentance.
It really is heartbreaking to read.
He literally writes that he hopes this public confession brings him liberation after his death. Yeah. The tactical victories of his youth have completely faded, and the moral compromises have come into sharp focus. He realizes that in trying to conceal the union's weakness, and in attacking someone who refused to play that game, he ended up concealing his own integrity.
The burden of carrying a false narrative for decades is incredibly heavy. He is seeking absolution because he understands now that his actions weren't just strategic. They were a failure of character.
And that lack of transparency ends up trapping him in real time, too, because the puffed-up list of demands didn't actually work.
Shocker.
Right. Management stalled, the progress was agonizingly slow, and the journalists started getting frustrated. Now, Shekhar is an action-oriented guy.
Very much so.
He admits in the text that he had a rough nature. He dropped out of school around the 6th grade, or 6th standard as it's known there, and lived as a vagrant for a while.
Yeah, he had a real let's see what happens kind of attitude.
Exactly. So he goes to his friend Manu Chakravarti's house, uses his telephone, and talks for hours with Hari Kumar from management, trying to negotiate the demands all by himself.
He essentially takes the entire collective bargaining process of a labor union and just condenses it into a private phone booth.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. His friend, a guy named Pachi, finds out about this and confronts him.
Yeah.
Pachi asks him this devastating question. How can you confine the union's negotiations within the limits of your telephone conversation? Right? Shekhar is absolutely shaken to his core by this truth. He realizes instantly what he has done, and he resigns as union president right then and there.
Just immediately steps down.
Yeah. He notes that if phone recording technology existed back then, he would have gladly shared the audio with everyone. But because it didn't, and because the conversations weren't open to the members, he realizes it was implicitly an act of concealment.
This is a crucial distinction to make. What Shekhar experiences here is implicit concealment.
Implicit, right.
Because he didn't pick up that phone with the malicious intent to deceive his union members. He wasn't plotting against them in the shadows to sell them out.
He was just impatient.
Exactly. He was frustrated, he was impatient, and he just wanted to bypass the bureaucracy to get things moving. Action-oriented people often mistakenly view transparency as an obstacle to efficiency.
Oh, that happens constantly today.
Oh, yeah.
Think about how many decisions are made in private Slack DMs or closed-door meetings just to, speed things up, bypassing the wider team.
Pachi's confrontation reveals a fundamental truth about leadership. Leadership requires visibility, not just action. When you operate in the shadows, even with the best intentions, you are stripping your stakeholders of their agency. They cannot participate in a process they cannot see.
So true.
Concealment isn't always a lie you actively tell. Sometimes it is simply a failure of transparency. It is the information you fail to share because you thought the result would justify the opaque process.
But operating in the shadows isn't always a malicious power grab or a leadership failure.
No, it's not.
Sometimes, hiding the truth is the only way a person can survive a social situation with their dignity intact, which completely changes how we have to look at concealment.
Yeah, this is a great pivot.
Shekhar pivots from the labor union to the Indian wedding ceremony, and it is just a brilliant shift in perspective.
The mechanics of the Indian wedding gift provide a perfect lens for this.
Absolutely.
He paints a picture of the socioeconomic contrasts at these celebratory events. If you're wealthy, you buy expensive gifts, pack them into massive ornate boxes, and proudly present them to the newlyweds.
Look at my giant box.
Exactly. The scale of your wealth is entirely unconcealed. Everyone sees exactly how much you spent. But if you're poor, going up to that couple with only a 5 or 10 rupee note in your hand is suffocating.
Oh, absolutely.
In a space designed for grand displays of abundance, handing over a meager amount of cash is an incredibly humiliating public display of your lack of resources.
Yeah.
So the solution to this is the envelope, or the cover. The poorer guests stuff whatever currency notes they can afford inside an opaque envelope, hand it to the couple, and quickly flee the stage.
Right.
Shekhar explicitly defines this as the concealment of a poor person. The envelope acts as a shield. It allows the person to fulfill their social obligation to participate in the community's ritual without being publicly shamed for their economic reality.
Which is so necessary.
Yeah. The newlyweds will eventually open it in private, but in the public sphere, the envelope equalizes the guests.
It really makes you think about how society has effectively commercialized the envelope today.
How so?
Well, we all use tools to conceal our perceived inadequacies so we can participate in modern life without feeling constantly exposed.
Oh, right.
Social media filters, carefully curated resumes, or even just the reflex to tell an acquaintance, "I'm doing great," when you're actually having a terrible week.
Oh, 100%.
These are our modern wedding envelopes. We filter the messy reality of our lives to avoid the shame of not measuring up to the ornate boxes everyone else seems to be carrying.
The duality Shekhar is presenting to us here is profound. In the workplace, concealment was a failure of leadership because it robbed the union members of their right to know what was happening.
Right.
But at the wedding, concealment is an act of grace. It is a survival mechanism. The physical act itself, hiding reality, is exactly the same in both scenarios.
The context changes everything.
Precisely. The moral weight of the act changes entirely depending on the power dynamic. When the vulnerable conceal, it is self-preservation. When the powerful conceal, it is manipulation.
Which brings us to the final and arguably most explosive level of concealment in Shekhar's essay, The National Political Stage.
Yeah, area.
Because if the envelope is a harmless tool for the vulnerable to hide their poverty, what happens when the most powerful people in society use the exact same tool to hide their true intentions?
Right.
Now, it's worth noting here that Shekhar doesn't play favorites. He calls out leaders from both the Congress and the BJP by name.
He does.
And looking at his critique objectively, regardless of where anyone stands politically, we are just looking at his observation.
Yeah.
And his core observation about the political class as a whole is fascinating.
He shifts to politics and points out a universal truth about political communication. When these leaders step in front of the microphones for newspapers or private television channels, they project one specific reality.
The public face.
Exactly. But what they keep hidden in their hearts, their actual motives and backstage deals, is something completely different. They are constantly handing the public an opaque envelope.
And Shekhar does not mince words here. He labels this act of political concealment as highly uncooperative, antisocial, and fundamentally anti-democratic.
Strong words.
So what does this all mean for us as voters? Why is this specific type of concealment so much more dangerous than the others we have discussed?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see his ultimate thesis solidifying around the concept of consent.
Okay.
A democracy relies on the consent of the governed. But how can a population give meaningful consent if the reality of what they're consenting to is hidden from them?
They can't.
Right. When politicians conceal their true motives behind a microphone, they are stripping the citizens of their ability to make informed choices at the ballot box. It is the ultimate manifestation of the implicit concealment he learned about on the telephone, just scaled up to a national level.
Wow, yeah.
The leaders operate in the shadows, assuming the ends justify the means, and in doing so, they rob the public of their agency.
Shekhar presents two stark paths forward for the listener. Path number one, you can just accept this reality from the bottom of your heart.
Just give in.
Yeah, accept that politicians will always conceal things, make peace with it, and just feel relieved that you aren't fighting a losing battle anymore. Or, path number two, you cast your vote to actively show your disgust and revulsion toward this, as he calls it, wretched concealment.
Right.
But, it forces a difficult question about double standards. We completely understand why the poor person conceals their reality to protect their dignity. We all use our own envelopes daily to survive social pressures.
Yeah.
Yet we demand absolute, brutal transparency from our leaders.
Yeah.
Are we holding them to a standard of openness that human nature simply doesn't allow for?
We might be, but the power dynamic requires that double standard.
How so?
The poor person's envelope only protects their own dignity. It doesn't harm the wedding couple.
Right.
A citizen curating their resume doesn't destabilize society. But a politician's concealment protects their power at the direct expense of the voter's autonomy. They are fundamentally different transactions.
That makes total sense.
One is a shield against shame. The other is a weapon against accountability.
That brings us full circle on this journey. We started with the cowardly concealment hidden over cups of coffee at the Indian coffee bar, where fear masqueraded as strength.
Yeah.
We felt the heavy spiritual regret of a 71-year-old man looking back at how his ego weaponized concealment against someone authentic.
We saw the quiet, necessary dignity wrapped inside a wedding envelope.
And finally, we faced the anti-democratic threat of microphones used to broadcast illusions instead of truth. Shekhar Purna really forces you to examine the structural integrity of the truth in your own life.
It is a remarkable piece of self-reflection, and it leaves a final, unexamined paradox for you to chew on after you finish this deep dive.
Oh.
The author clearly asks us to choose the path of resistance, to vote out politicians who conceal the truth, to demand a world without shadows.
Right.
But if our entire society, our very social fabric, is built on small, polite concealments, like the wedding envelope, the curated resume, the white lies we tell to keep the peace,
Yeah.
are we actually capable of handling a politician who refuses to conceal anything? If absolute transparency were suddenly the norm, what would a completely unconcealed world actually look like? Would it be a democratic utopia, or would it just be unbearable?
If you remove all the envelopes, what is left?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the anatomy of concealment. Keep questioning the layers of truth around you, keep looking for what might be hiding in plain sight, and we will catch you next time.